as being the case. Is that it always started out as like, oh, soccer is, ugh, that's that European game. And then
Yeah,
the minute that Atlanta got a team, everyone had jerseys and flags all over their houses and stuff. It was so funny, man.
that's how
Uh,
it goes, dude.
yeah. So maybe it was that I just like wasn't as alone as I thought I was, and I just didn't know anyone that was into it the way that I was. But there's part of me that's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know about that. But I think what it did too is probably give people an opportunity to see it. Um,
Yeah,
and the games in the states, I think typically are they're a little crazier. There's less like elegance to it a lot of the time. That might have
right.
changed some, but I think the uh, the MLS always kind of had, and it's very American in that way. Like there's just a little, I wouldn't call it chaos, but it played a little bit differently than sort of like the way that like Germany plays soccer or did. I actually haven't watched a game from them in a while, but the team that like won the World Cup in what was that
Yeah,
2017? No, it was before that. It was 20. Man, what year was that? 2014, 15, something like
something
that.
like that. I just
I don't quite
remember.
remember now.
Didn't Janetta say something to me and you about celebrating, like getting so involved into the MLS or during the Olympics, the USA team, and we got was it me and you or I can't remember.
I don't. No, I don't remember honestly.
I don't. I remember that she said something to us, but not like directly to us, not like just about like people celebrating,
I don't
getting
know.
too involved in it
I
at the
mean,
time.
I don't know,
But
man. Like people want to let to some degree, right? Like let people just enjoy the things that they
yeah,
enjoy.
that they enjoy
Let them get
to some
excited about
degree.
that stuff. Yeah, it's not.
Just like with me, I'm just dying to get a PlayStation 5 so I can get that college football game and
Oh,
play it.
bro, that's so funny. I do need to. I'm sorry, I have not gotten on Facebook around here to check for you. I
I've
will.
checked a couple. I checked on Facebook here.
Still trying to
Um,
find stuff.
yeah, but there's like 5 people who live here, so
It's right.
um,
Yeah. I mean, eBay is another option for that. I don't know how much they're going for on there, but like, it's
I
pretty.
kind of just want to get a still on one, but a physical
Yeah.
one. I don't want no
Oh.
stupid digital one.
Oh yeah. You know what's funny is I almost bought the digital, and I'm really glad I didn't.
Yeah, no, I couldn't
That
do
would
it.
have been a mistake for sure. I actually have way too many like physical copies of games, which is weird because that wasn't always the case. But part of that is
I will
too.
only do physical now.
Same, yeah. I'm really moving back into that. And then of course, I just pre-ordered season 1 of Arcane on 4K,
Oh
so
yeah,
really stoked about that. I was literally on Twitter, and there was someone that I follow was like, oh, it was Mark the Cyborg, and he had posted like retweeted it or whatever, and I was like,
right.
oh shoot, and I like went in there and I was like, yeah, I'm buying this. I'm just like not even a question. I'm just doing this right now. Um, hey, what's up, Whoopa? Welcome. I hope you're all doing well in our little pre-show discussion. Um,
Dude, I saw on Twitter today that Apple TV currently generates less views per month than Netflix does in a day.
ooh,
Yeah, that's not good. They
no, not at
suck.
all. Yeah, I mean nobody ever talks about them, right? Like,
Nobody's like, let me go watch this show on Apple TV. Oh
yeah.
man,
So you'll have to kind of get on eBay, bro. But like, you might be able to get one for like 300.
that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get one around that price,
There's a few in
but
here.
I'm waiting to. I think I need to be disciplined and just wait until the end of August, early September, when I'll have my credit card officially paid off.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then from that point, I'll get me a PlayStation 5 on my credit card. No, I'm joking. I'll pay. That would
Um,
be horrible. And I'll get that game, and I'm gonna get a couple controllers. I'm gonna get my wife Animal Crossing for our Nintendo
nice.
Switch.
Man,
Trying to get her.
if I had a physical copy of Animal Crossing, I would have just given it to you because I
I
haven't played that
appreciate it.
game in like forever. I'm sorry. That was still back during that time where I was. Well, it was during that game came out like in the middle of COVID too. So
Hmm.
part of it was like I really don't feel like you know going out and dealing
What
with the masses.
I really think my wife would particularly that be a game up her alley, along with probably that new Lord of the Rings game
Yeah.
that's in that style of Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to
Um.
slowly get her more and more involved in different types of video games
Stardew
because she's
Valley.
more so just like um a Mario fan,
Gotcha.
like original Mario fan.
You should try Stardew Valley.
Yeah, she's actually probably would because she had a coworker
Who's into that?
who recently left who was
It's
really into Stardew Valley.
it's pretty inexpensive too, especially if you get it on sale. Like you can get it for pretty dang cheap because it's been out for so long now.
Nice.
But it's Animal Crossing vibes. It's just like farm, like a kind of farm simulator type stuff, and it's got some other things to it too. But you don't necessarily have to dig into like every aspect of it.
Yep.
Oh goodness gracious! Alrighty, well, how have you been?
Pretty
Any?
good, man. Just tired. I mean, like just surviving one historical event after the
Oh
other
my
in the
gosh,
world.
dude! All the
You know what
stuff.
I'm saying?
Oh, bro, all the stuff going on. It's crazy. Um,
It's wild, man.
I yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting like House of the Dragon, and then we're getting like real life House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
for real. The Game of Thrones right there.
I know. I'm not sure. Like it's really interesting. I can't remember who I was listening to recently. Um, that was talking about how crazy it might have been Gary, that like how crazy the COVID era of being on YouTube was. Um,
Oh, what was he saying?
a lot of like what we used to, we kind of talked about where it was like there were just like a lot of things that you couldn't say. Like if you even like, it was borderline at the point where a lot of channels, like if they were alluding to certain things, you could get completely destroyed.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then recently, it seems like a lot of that has like cooled off, and then now there's like here and there a little bit of it that is like ramping back up. Like Dave Smith has done some like debates recently, and like the little like warning labels have started showing up on people's channels again about quote
Oh
unquote
yeah.
misinformation and all of that. It's really interesting. Doesn't affect us, I think, nearly that way anymore. I mean, like the
No, because
entertainment.
we're a comedy podcast.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
knows
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Just so everyone, yeah, the comedy podcast Shield.
Yeah.
Wubu said,
We try to spread. Everybody else tries to refrain from spreading misinformation and disinformation. We try and spread both of them.
yes, exactly. Um, Wubu said, kind of tired of living through unprecedented historical events. Bro, and it's funny because it's like whether that's the truth or not. I'm in the same boat to a degree. Like I'm tired of being told that everything is like an unprecedented historical event. And then the ones where you go, oh wow, this actually is pretty historical. You're just like, I'm so tired. Like can I just like work and like hang out with my friends and like not worry about like every tiny little thing that's going on in the world. Like
Right.
oh my gosh. I become like more and more like a small L libertarian like every day. And it just kind of
What do you
goes.
mean by that?
So the term is basically like not really party affiliated
Yep.
because like
Okay. That's
bro,
what I am, a small L
I'm
libertarian
I'm
then.
I'm just so over all of it. I'm just like
What I sent you my little trick on today. I texted it to you to how to kind of avoid a lot of the political stuff on to clean up your timeline.
block and or mute.
Yep. Like words, specific words, and that has helped me out a ton.
Whoopa would like us to vote for him in November.
Too late. I'm already voting for David Lupa.
Yes,
I'm not
I
voting for you,
am. I
commie.
am doing a
I won't bow
write-in.
down to your commie Whoopa Tosca, whatever it's called.
Yeah, man. Running for president in 2024 as a write-in candidate.
Yep.
Oh
Your
goodness.
slogan is "Make America Greater Again" before it was made great again.
Again, yeah. Just a few extra agains on there, you know what I mean? Um yeah, man. I mean like it's exhausting. There's like I wake up some days like legitimately and I go maybe today is the day to just like sell everything and live in a like a RV,
That's too
you
funny.
know, just somewhere, go to like move to the beach or something. Or sometimes I'm like, maybe I'll just like move to Brazil or Argentina and learn like a second language. just, you know, just like
I know
be
exactly what
be
you mean.
somewhere where it's like kind of like we were saying, like not everything is this just like giant event. Like it's exhausting. And then it's gonna get worse like as we get closer to November. But then like everybody like trying to gaslight you into being involved in every little thing.
Yep.
You know, I mean it's already happening
Everybody and
to a
their mother.
degree, but it's
But
just
I did tell
I'm
you
tired.
about the buddy of mine. I don't think he listens to us. But I had a buddy of mine that was deep, dark winter MAGA. Like, I mean,
Like
he
that.
was
Oh no.
freaking like QAnon's protege. You know what I mean? Uh, I mean, he was steep into the dark magic. The dark mag, I should say. And but now he's an anarcho capitalist
Nice.
because I just slowly, I was just talking to him, throw questions out there. He'd research things on his own and stuff. And now he's not a Trump supporter at all.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Trump.
Congratulations. Yeah, man. I don't know. I think just like with movies, everybody kind of it's so funny how this stuff. It's sort of just like human logic. Like stuff has a tendency to carry over incorrectly. Like we learn the wrong lessons from things.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always thought that I'll say some of the people from the Libertarian Party, like actually, and then some people who are just like adjacent to it, they were always kind of right about is like just work on like local stuff. Like
Yep.
get your local stuff sorted out. Try to live somewhere where like locally, if something, God forbid, like COVID ever happened again, that the people around you aren't gonna like lose their minds. And
And kill you.
yeah,
Like I
um,
won't I don't forget about that.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah, dude.
saying? I
Yeah,
can forgive for sure, but now I'm like, that's why I sent you that article about what old dude that we talked about. What's his name? The Christian guy that headed up Dr. Fauci's,
oh yeah.
Beagle testing
Uh,
facility.
Man, I can see him clearly only because they did that thing where he was playing guitar.
Yes,
But his name.
every time I think of
Wow,
it,
man.
that's the
What was that guy's name?
what I come up with in my head.
Man, it's like on the tip of my tongue. Um, yeah, man. I mean, like that stuff is crazy, and like the number of people who were again, it was just like most of it was just gaslighting, right? Like a lot of people
Yes.
were trying to like question your belief system, like based on a personal choice like that.
Oh yeah, you
Um,
gotta. In order to love your neighbor, you need to take
yeah,
the
yeah,
holy poke.
yep,
Francis
yep.
Collins, by the way.
Francis Collins, that's what it was. Um, yeah, man. Just it's so funny though. It's like, oh, this is a good one. You'll appreciate this. I think some of our listeners will too. Um, I'll keep this as like nobody from work listens to this. There might be like one. I think only one. He doesn't even work with me anymore. But I think there's like one dude that I've told about the show. Um, but there's this. She's this younger girl that I work with. She's probably somewhere between like 17 and 19.
Right.
And I was like leaving work today and just like sat down for a minute and like her and a couple other people were on break and they were talking about like Twitch streamers that they like to watch. Um, and they were talking about like I had never heard of like any of these people, right? It was like Fortnite streamers or what.
You must have told them that your favorite was Doctor Disrespect.
I should have, dude. That would have been so funny. Be like, oh, you don't know? Know about what? Or like even better, be like, oh, I know. But the this one girl, she's like, oh yeah, I like some of these game streamers, and then she goes, and also political streamers. Well, I'm immediately going, well, it's Twitch. I know where this is going. And then
Yep.
she goes,
Well thought out debates.
right. And then she goes, oh, have you ever heard of this guy, Hassan Piker? And I got up and was like, bye, guys.
David just what's it called? When you just bust in the flames
Oh,
automatically.
yeah, yeah.
Spontaneous combustion.
Spontaneous combustion. Yeah. Bro, I was just like,
You just hear
oh,
David's spirit go,
oh no.
ah.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, oh, sweet summer child. Oh, if you only knew. And it's like the only, what's funny is the only reason I know so much about him is because of EFAB. It's the only reason, like, it's the only reason I know so much about him. The only reason I know so much about Boogie. Um, do the mines
That's
with
pretty
her.
funny.
Yeah. So I mean, I, it's hard sometimes, dude, because I don't know. Like, it's so funny. I guess being as involved as we are, like on the internet, and then it's like, okay, how do I balance like having real life conversations with people, and then also sort of being like, oh no, like, dude, like Hassan Piker is an idiot. He is like, he's so politically inept, bro. And it's like, it's not just that, it's also just everything else that he does. Like, he steals from streamers, like steals their
Yep.
like hard worked content, doesn't give anyone credit for anything. Um, acts as it, he's a bread tuber, I guess technically, but he fought. There's another term for him that's slipping my mind. It's funny, Jenna would probably know. Um, but there's like another term for a lot of these like online socialists who are like millionaires, and they're constantly talking about like the working class and all these things, and it's like, well, they live in like $3 million homes and sit in front of a
Never
computer
worked a day
and
in their
eat
life.
nuggies. Yeah. And then like he was the
Well, I
guy.
mean, never. They've never done a blue collar job. I won't say they haven't worked
Oh yeah, like
because
champagne
YouTube is
socialists.
work,
That's right.
but
I mean, there's like work to it, but he's the guy, dude, that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. That was like, streaming's like the hardest job.
yep, got to put on my hard hat while I go to the streaming mines.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, dude, I like, yes, there is something about sitting in a chair and talking for like hours on end that I understand, that like there is a level of like, we talked about this before, like if we're putting, if we have like a sliding scale or something, right? Or just like a diagram, or everybody likes those like tier rankings, right? Like the A through
Right.
whatever. So if we were doing one of those, like, sure, streaming, if we put it at like 8 hours, right? Just like your typical work day, and you decided you wanted to do that, and you were making money doing that and doing well, like, there is effort that goes into that. So you would rank somewhere on that, but you would not rank in the S tier. You would probably rank in the D tier, because
Yes.
we would all go, yes,
Well,
it
the
does
curve
take
isn't
effort,
that
you
high.
know.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The effort and then the curve, like, is something that people you know. I won't say there's not a lot of learning that goes into it. There is, but there's a difference in doing that versus doing what you do and doing what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like on the scale of difficulty, it's not up there. Like to get to the elite tier, I would say that it is. You got to be good at it. But I mean, if you want to, it's just not the. It's just not the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm still convinced that Piker is like a plant. Um,
Shoot, so
like,
is freaking Pearl Davis.
oh yeah, pearly things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these people that I think get elevated on purpose, and there's like behind the scenes stuff going on, especially with like certain Twitch people like Piker.
Yeah.
That it's not like it's not a natural growth in that sense. Part of it being that like I think he already had made a lot of money before he even started. So he was already, when he started, he was already well off enough that if he wasn't making money sitting in a chair for 8 hours, he was still fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you went back into that. But like the other thing to talk about with that is that there is a level of work that goes into it based on the individual, like, quote unquote streamer or YouTuber. So like, you look at someone like Mahler. Like, Mahler has like a really whether you agree with him or not, or you like his stuff or not, he has a very strong work ethic.
Yes.
He probably works too much. Like, I think if it's the funniest thing, but like everyone's always criticizing him for all this other stuff, and I'm like, the dude probably works too much. He probably needs to take a vacation because but he loves what he does. Obviously, like he's on a ton of streams, he's editing in between those streams, and he's like sleeping. And then there's times when he's like, yeah, I'd love to play like video games, but I have like a ton of editing to do. I'm working through like all of these different projects. Like that is different than Hassan Piker, who literally will put up YouTube videos on his stream and leave his chair spinning around while he goes and makes freaking like Hot Pockets or whatever.
Yeah, right.
You know? So there is a difference, right? But at the same time, they're not gonna be on the level of like even, you know, you're like your trash guy, or you know, pick your poison of people who have like tougher jobs, like the guys who climb those crazy towers to change a light bulb out. You know,
but dude, you couldn't pay me enough.
Yeah. All right. So we've talked about that stuff enough, I think. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 179 of The Underground. I am joined once again by my co-host, the magnanimous.
Wild West.
Yeah. Oh, what was the word that? Oh, I forgot the word that he used in that one episode of House of the Dragon. Was it magnanimous? Or I probably said that wrong.
I think you're right.
I definitely mispronounced that. Anyway.
No, I think you were right on the pronunciation.
But
my maiden name is Wild West Pimp Style.
Wild West Pimp Style. Okay, I'm looking up the pronunciation of this. Sorry, everyone. Magnanimous. Great of mind or heart, of high and steadfast courage, elevated in soul or in sentiment, high-minded, raised above what is low, mean or ungenerous. Magnanimous. Okay, I was close.
Say it 3 times fast.
Magnanimous.
There you go.
Anyway, Joseph Nations.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be back.
How are you doing, sir? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
This breakdown. We're gonna talk about both of them, right?
Yeah, I kind of scroll back through. I think these are good pieces for each other because we still are building up to the end, right? So there's 8 episodes.
Right.
This is 5 and 6, and then we have 7 and 8. And I think that weirdly enough, I think both of these are going to end up working pretty well as companion pieces to each other. Because they are in the process of doing another build up to, I think, the season finale.
I think they're setting a lot of stuff up, and it's what I wanted to talk to you about. Maybe what we could do is instead of we could just talk about both of them at the same time. If you want to.
I'm fine with that. I'll do my best to try to like keep up with where we are, as like visually.
Okay. How do you? What do you think about Rhaenyra this season? That's my question. Because I got thoughts on her. So I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if it. Okay, so we should just say now spoilers. Because we kind of have to start at almost the end of episode 6, because I'm curious if it's because of the end of episode 6. If that's what you want to talk about. Okay, because I want to hear your thoughts about, because you had mentioned to me, you're like, there's a lot of stuff I liked in episode 6, and then there's stuff that I didn't like. And I'm mostly in agreement. I think the weirdest one. And we'll talk about it. We'll just go ahead and get right to that specific point, since we're talking about her this season and like where she's probably headed for the last 2 episodes. It's not that I'm I'm against the character development of her having a quasi relationship with her like Master of Whispers, whose name I'm forgetting.
Miss Sandra, is that her name?
I think so. Look it up for me, just so we know.
I love that.
It's not that I'm like, oh, that's
Miss Sandra.
Miss Sandra. I think that's right.
I'm checking right now. But that sounds.
Again, I'm not necessarily against it. I just don't think they put the work in with those two characters. Massaria, thank you. Yes, Rhaenyra and Massaria share an on-screen kiss at the end of episode 6, almost at the very end. And I'll be honest, man, they were like, having that conversation, and she hugs her, and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then jokingly, I went, now kiss, and then they did, and I was like, oh, I don't think that was earned, like, at all.
So here's my deal. You want to know
Yeah.
where I stand? I think as a whole, Rhaenyra's character this season is down, further down on the list than it is up.
Agreed.
It's been more like a decline from last year. So, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of setup in season 1, right?
Yeah.
And this season it was supposed to be bang, bang, bang.
Like Rhaenyra actually taking action, right? That's the way that they set up season 1. Yeah, for sure.
At the end of season 1,
yeah,
she's like, I want Aemon, and it's like, oh shoot,
yeah,
like she's ticked off, she's mad. My son just got killed. We're going after it. We're going after them. And now it's kind of like they focus so hard on trying to make her and the blacks seem like the good guys.
Yeah,
that they've have softened her character too much from what it was leading to at last year. And then on top of that, is I totally get the setup they've done and the characterization of Rhaenyra they've done to where, she is part to blame for the House of the Dragons. She shares a good bit of responsibilities because of her bad judgment.
Yep. Which has continued over the season, to be clear. Like
it has, but I think like this Massaria thing, it sped along.
Yep.
Too fast, and to where it's like Massaria to me is like a rainy situation from episode 9 last year, to where it kind of broke my immersion, because even though Rhaenyra has bad judgment, she's not that dumb to where she would just automatically start trusting this lady.
Yeah.
Who was just trying to destroy her last season. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. This show's biggest weakness, just as a whole, that I've seen, and to be fair, there's a lot worse out there, right? Like I don't feel like we have to we shouldn't have to constantly say that, but like this show is still leaps and bounds above, like,
oh yeah, this was a good episode.
Just everything else that we've seen. But they did not properly set up what I would call a kind of a relationship of convenience for them. Now, I mean that in the sense that, like, Rhaenyra has lost her husband, essentially. Like, he's gone. He's off doing his thing. She's clearly lonely. Her and Daemon are, they talk about it a lot. It's something that the show is reminding you of quite often. Hey, Zax, good to see you, dude. Hope you're doing well. She has that, like, blood of the dragon, right? Like, it's that incurable sort of, like, she's like never satisfied with anything, sort of thing. Like, everything is like higher than life, sort of the way that we always talked about Daemon in season 1. He's always sort of like chasing after the things that he wants no matter what, and she has a lot of that too, but she's been so played down this season, and she's been playing kind of, and it's probably part of the reason you feel the way that you do about her, is that she hasn't been front and center, and they haven't focused on her in the ways that they did in the first season. And
I think you have that coupled with Daemon's a man of action this season. He hasn't been a man of action. Rhaenyra isn't a woman of action this season.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, Daemon's character arc I very much enjoy this season.
Yeah.
Even though there's not a ton of action going on with him.
Yeah.
But I think to have that with, like, Rhaenyra and Daemon being in that, it wasn't the best of choices.
Yeah. This season's been focused more on the greens, I think, overall. Like, we're building up a lot of stuff still, which I'm not necessarily against. And I think I do want to try to go back and watch, like, the whole thing pretty quickly, just because I'm wondering if, like, pieces are going to feel like they fit a little bit better. And I don't think the 2-year gap helped them at all, because, that scene of Rhaenyra, the one that I've got up on the the screen right now. It's like the very last shot of season 1 gives you this idea that she's like in the game now.
Yep.
And the problem is with season 2 and the way that they've decided to sort of set everything up. It's only like, as far as I can tell, it's only like a week. Like we're getting a maybe a little bit longer, maybe a couple weeks past this scene, right? So, but the problem is that her character is not this thing that they were kind of almost promising for the following season,
Right.
where she's a bit more vengeful. And it's like some of that is because like enough hasn't happened, and even she's lost a child, she's lost somewhat
Her
of a
father.
her father, a mentor at this point. What was Zach saying? Rhaenyra seems to be walking around without her Queen's Guard now, surprising given the assassination attempt. Yeah, there's a lot of just like there's a lot of weird choices that she's making that I don't think they've really. And part of it I think is because they're still trying to keep the show pretty tight and just keep it within the 4 seasons. And unfortunately, I think in certain storytelling perspectives, it's like a bit of a detriment to them. In the same way we talked, like I mean, I don't know if you would say it's as bad. Like I think we have to wait at least until we see the end of the season. But like she's on that level of like Kristen Cole from season 1. Like she's getting to the point where it's like stuff with her. It's like okay, but like why are you making this decision?
Yeah.
You know, like her like kind of weird relationship. It's like all right, like but I feel like in order for me to be sort of like on board with that and then be convinced that that's something that you would do, there was more setup that needed to be happening versus this feels more forced because we're not getting the stuff that we need.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense the way that like you were talking about Daemon this season and what he's going through. Like all of that was earned. Like they have like meticulously crafted his character, and then they're like, okay, we're taking the very confident, very like action oriented Daemon and we're putting him in a situation where he has no control.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Whereas with her,
And-
she's been sitting around in a castle, and then like every time she makes a decision, it's like, what do you? Okay,
yeah.
um, bad or good, it's still like that question is there of like, So, yeah, I don't know yet.
Yeah. On top of that, with Missaria, man, the acting. I don't know if it's how the director is directing her or her acting, but
Yeah,
man, does it come off stale.
that was a complaint that
Just
I had in the first
really
season.
stale.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but like her accent in the first season was starting to drive me crazy. Like she was putting it on too thick.
Yep.
They've pulled back on that some.
Oh, it's bothering me.
Um, yeah, they pulled back on it some, but yeah, um,
It's just
she's
so.
not as interesting. She's just not. She's not as interesting as a lot of the other characters in the show,
I think it's
unfortunately.
because how they've written her too. Like if they would
Yeah.
have done it where she gets captured and Rhaenyra's like, "No, I'm not letting you go. I'm not an idiot. You're gonna stay locked up." And then, but Mysaria is like, "Listen, like the Greens wanted to kill me. I'll do whatever I have to do to prove myself to you. Just give me time."
Yeah.
And then slowly over time, she has to like go through trials to prove her loyalty to Rhaenyra. And then eventually Rhaenyra comes to this place of realizing just how valuable and useful she is. Then yeah, I'm all for it. But I think the problem is they sped it up way too fast in
Hmm.
in a stupid scenario. And maybe there's a fast way to do it. It just wasn't. That's not built around a luck and chance encounter.
Yeah.
Um,
She's just like, unfortunately, she's not as interesting as like Laris is. And it's funny, it
no,
just talking about her,
and he's a better actor too.
he is, and there's a character, is one of my favorites from the original series, Olenna Tyrell. She is like a elderly woman who is incredibly smart, and all of her scenes, man, is her sitting in rooms talking to people because that's all she can really do, right? Like
Right.
she plays the game the way that she knows how and with what she has available to her. The writing for her was always really, really good. We won't talk about like some of the stuff going on with how the Tyrells kind of go out in
Yeah.
I think that's season 7. Um, but you know, early stuff with Game of Thrones, like we've always talked about, there were a lot of characters, men and women, who all were very interesting, and I think that unfortunately, that's just not the case with some of the way that they've handled them in this. And there, it does seem to be, man, that sort of trying not to make them as like bad as everybody else. Like like you were saying, like with the blacks, they're trying to not make them seem as bad as the greens. But dude, I don't know. Like this season, it's been the weirdest thing, and maybe this is intentional, and it's just sort of like they haven't worked hard enough to like be like, oh no, what are the blacks doing? And oh, you're sort of feeling more towards the greens. But I've just been enjoying watching Alicent and
Oh, agree.
you know,
Especially
dude,
her coming to the realization in this episode of how bad of a mother she was, and that the fact that
right?
Darren is nice because he's been away from her.
We've
The
had.
one that's in
Oh, this is not that episode.
at the High Towers. What's their
Otto?
castle?
Oh,
No,
oh,
Darren, her other son, who was like her brother was like, yeah, he's
that
nice,
scene is
kind.
so good with her and Gawain, right? And
Yep, Gwaine, that's his name.
they're talking about her son, yeah. He's back home, and like he basically is like, yeah, he's probably stable. Like obviously we haven't been introduced to him yet, and they're leading into that, I'm sure. I'm kind of curious if we'll actually see him this season, but yeah, like that the stuff around her and all of the greens this season has been just like so much more interesting
Than most of the black stuff. I won't say all of it, but I'd say most of it, mainly just because I think Massaria is the dead weight, the weight that's holding them down because Rhaenyra is looking for that acceptance and love. She's lonely. Massaria, instead of, this is what I mean, like her proving herself to Rhaenyra, she could have easily been in this scene like, well, yeah, the reason why your lords feel this way is because you've done things to show them that even that you're inexperienced, and a bit whiny. Like she's not giving her in a tactful way, right? Mind you,
Yeah.
she's not giving her like solid counsel. And the other thing with Rhaenyra, she's like, I grew up, I was only, the cupbearer to everyone around these small tables, where the purpose in season one was for her to learn all this, all this information because it'd be beneficial for her, from what I
as a
remember
queen.
Viserys.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a queen, Viserys telling her. And on top of that, here's the thing. She's queen now. She could have easily get people to train her.
Exactly. I was just thinking that. Is it like, yeah, if you want to learn how to defend yourself, you have Kingsguard.
Yes, and don't pretend like if you were a child you would have done it, because you weren't. Now, and maybe I'm wrong. Like children had different interests, but like she wasn't studious, right? She
No,
was.
she was. She just didn't like it necessarily.
Yeah,
There's because there's
there you go.
that scene with her and Alicent pretty
Yep.
early on in the show where she's outside. Like Alicent was very studious. They're both like they set them up to both be very intelligent. Like they know their things. But Rhaenyra is just more like, she's a little more free spirited, whereas like Alicent was always like by the book, like study, play your part, and it's Alicent now. You're seeing her like transition away from a lot of that. She's and I'm curious what's going to happen to her during the rest of this season, because it's so funny that we're talking about this like this, because Alicent was really in Rhaenyra's shoes last season.
Dude, and Alicent's character is so good this year. Like she's lost all the power at the council. She has nothing, and I love the fact in the last, not this past episode, but the episode before last, how the council was like, why would we put you on the throne when the whole reason why we didn't put Rhaenyra on the throne was because she was a woman? That wouldn't make any sense. And then Aemon's in this episode, it's like, yeah, get out. You're not useful. And she's coming to this realization that she hasn't been a good mother. She hasn't played her hand well. And it's just like, there's so much. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say her father. They're sort of hinting at the fact that like Otto doesn't really want to talk to her.
Yeah.
That and who knows what's going on with him. When Aemon said like get Otto Hightower or whatever, I was like, yes, finally. He's been away for too long.
We had like his best scene ever, and he has to leave. And oh man, it's so good. And even just, I've really enjoyed Eamon's scene
Hmm.
with Larry's when Larry was trying to pull those tricks on Eamon to get him to name
Yep.
him Hand,
Yep.
and
He
and
didn't play his hand quite right there.
and Eamon says, "I know what you're trying to do, you toad. I'm not my freaking drunk brother and my
Yep.
dumb mother."
Eamon's gone way up for me since we had that conversation about I wasn't really, I still need to see him fight at this point. Like
Yes.
he's done dragon stuff. He's proven himself that
Dude,
way. He clearly has a sharp mind.
are
Um,
they gonna do the Eamon and Damon fight this season?
this
Because
season,
this was my thought, dude. I figured like they have to wrap up Damon and Otto's like character,
there's some stuff that they started there
like
that I feel like still needs, yeah.
to be resolved, and then also you got to resolve that with Damon. So I kind of figured what would happen is on some level, Damon and Otto's thing would be resolved, probably with Damon, potentially getting the better of Otto. Uh, Not necessarily that Otto gets killed or whatnot, but just Damon does his thing, or maybe even potentially Otto gets the better of Damon. Just one of they would their kind of interaction would happen first,
Yeah.
and then Aemon and Damon would go at it, and one of them comes out, maybe one of them comes out the winner, or they both die, or something like that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
since obviously not knowing what happens, I
yeah, I'm
eh,
just theorizing here.
yeah, if it was me, and this is kind of what I've thought about, I think the most like sort of like you could say poetic thing about it is if neither of them make it out of that fight alive. You know, even if
Yeah.
one sort of like the with what happened with the twins,
Yes.
where they're pretty like
Between you talking about between Aemon and
Eamon and
Damon?
Damon, yeah.
Okay.
I because like I don't want to see at this point. And again, not knowing what happens, have no idea what happens. Um, I I think that in a satisfying but also like what was the term that they used to uh there was a man, sorry, my brain's not functioning correctly. There
Oh,
was a
you're fine.
term, there's like this term where it's like, oh, it's like bittersweet, right? Where it's like you
Yes.
really like both of these characters, and then like the only way for their stories to kind of like finish is for neither of them to make it out, you
Yeah.
know. So we'll see. I don't know exactly what they're gonna do with these last two episodes.
It's
Um,
going to be interesting. It looks like Aemon is going to Harrenhal based off of the
the promos, yeah.
promos.
I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, if anything, like that'll probably be at the end of uh, the season. Like it'd be crazy for them. I feel like it would be crazy to dump all of that into the next episode, where like a bunch of people get like slaughtered or whatever, moving into episode 8. Um, so
It's going to
yeah,
be
we'll see.
interesting.
Let's see. Who else do we need? I guess.
Oh, let's talk about Damon. What do you think with him and the whole situation of him being at Harrenhal pretty much this entire season
Uh,
and having these visions and hallucinations? Do you think like the pacing is good? Do you feel like you want more of it, less of it? Where are you at?
I would almost say, and maybe it's just selfishly, I would like more because I really like Matt Smith and he plays this role so well. I think it's been working really well as basically the B plot of the season, though, which
Yeah.
makes me kind of think we will get him for at least one more season. That it's not done yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And who knows if we're actually gonna get the showdown. And who how Game of Thrones can be like, we all want the Aemon Damon fight, and it's like maybe not yet. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
wonder. I wonder because it would, and I said this in season 1 because we all know this show does not end up well for pretty much everybody involved. Like the main characters, most of them probably aren't coming out of it alive. Um,
No, there's no way they are.
so if that is like sort of like the default, and the assumption is that pretty much everybody's going to be dead by the time the season's over.
Right.
Um, I think the smart move is that you keep Matt Smith around as long as you can.
Yeah.
You keep your actors and actresses who are very good in these roles, you try to keep him around as long as you possibly can, because that was one of the things that was really rough for Game of Thrones, is that like a lot of the characters who were and the actors who played them, and when as a lot of them started to die because it was necessary for the show to continue, because that's just what happens, a lot of the quality started to dip in the acting,
Yeah.
because a lot of those characters were playing, like they were really elevating some of the like weaker characters. Excuse me, the weaker actors. And it's not really an insult. It's just like some of them have been around forever. You know, they've been acting their entire lives. Like they just command like a certain presence on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time really you get to 6, 7, and 8, most of them are gone. And then on top of having a lot of bad writing decisions, it really did hurt the show.
Right.
So that's the thing that I like. If I was going for it, it'd be like, okay, how can we keep this, sincere to the source material, but also manage to keep our talent around as long as possible.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, like, if there's going to be 4 seasons, you really should try to keep Matt Smith around at least until season 3, and then season 4 is closing a lot of that stuff out. I think that is probably satisfying enough. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen.
But you're enjoying the Harrenhal stuff?
Yeah,
with
yeah.
him?
I think it's great. I love the spooky, weirdness of everything going on, and like it being very much like Daemon is one of the best written characters in the show.
Completely agree.
Like
Maybe
they just
even the best outside of the series. I am glad
Yeah.
they brought him back.
Yeah, I was glad that he came back for a cameo, and it
And
makes sense. Like Daemon so
automatically my favorite episode this year.
this one, because of that.
I
That's
was just
funny.
saying just because of a series.
Yeah. I was glad to see him.
I was like, yes,
And
finally.
again, everything that they've done with Daemon, it's in line with his character. All the stuff, all the flashbacks, they're like, hey, let's bring Viserys back, and it's like, okay, how do we make this work? And it's like, well, obviously he's still like hung up about this stuff, so it makes sense that if we're dealing with Daemon's psyche, this is something that he has to work through, right? And what's interesting, man, what's interesting about a lot of this is like I still don't know where they're taking Daemon.
Yeah.
Because he
Agreed.
seems, with some of this, to have had a breakthrough in this episode.
Yep. It seems like this inner wrestling with himself, and because the one person he always truly loved and cared about and wanted their acceptance and respect and admiration was his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wrestling with these inner emotions that he wasn't able to show anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, I should have been there for my brother, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
I messed up.
Yeah.
I think
there
says a lot.
I'll say this because there's some interesting stuff going on. I think the show is trying to play with the viewer as well, because there's a scene in episode 2, I think it was 2, where he first is sort of like he first starts having whenever he actually gets to Harrenhal. So whichever episode was that, it's hard to remember at this point. Regardless. He gets there and he has like his first vision, and Alice Rivers basically says that he's gonna die at the weirwood tree in Harrenhal.
Yeah.
But there's 2 questions that have to be asked about that, because we're not given a timeline. Obviously, they're not going to tell us like the exact thing, so we're not getting a timeline. We're also not necessarily sure what that really means. Obviously, like we talked about, he's probably not making it out of the show alive. But what does it mean for Daemon to die there? Because there are other ways that you can die besides just physically. From like a storytelling perspective, there's things that you can do with that. It's like, is a bit of his selfish nature, is he gonna kind of like give like death in the sense of like giving up the things that he wants in order to like be who he needs to be for Rhaenyra? And that might be a little too like high-minded for him, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if he's gonna go that far back in the direction of like heroic. But I'm really am curious to see what they're going to do with him. And again, like I said, I think he is, especially at this point, I think he's probably like the most. If we're talking from the beginning to where we're at right now, he really is one of the best written characters in the show. I think they're just doing so many interesting things with him, and like every time he's on screen, I'm just like, I just want to keep like watching his little adventure at Harrenhal and going through this like spooky this spooky castle and whatever Alice Rivers is doing. And like I'm still not sure about her, because there was a point where I thought maybe no one else can see her, but then
Oh yeah, old dude can definitely Simon.
he's aware
Can.
of her, but I
He
don't
mentions her
know.
name,
He mentions her, but I don't know what that means.
but he said we sent our, healer, Alice to.
Right. And
Uh,
it was clearly her, and she clearly killed
I
Grover
I think
Tully.
he knows. Yeah, Grover Tully. I think he knows more than he's letting on,
About
and he's
her.
enjoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, about her, and
Yeah.
I think he's involved in on it, and I think he's enjoying what's kind of happening with um, her and Damon right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. He's there's always a lot of that stuff, and like by the time that everything's revealed to us, you like go back and you're like, oh yeah, like I see. Very very interesting stuff for sure. But yeah, still really really happy with where Damon has been, and I just don't. I really don't think they'll end his story this season, because I think they know it probably wouldn't be like for him to have gone through all of this and then they just like get rid of him this season. It just might
Yeah,
feel like they cut his legs out from underneath him a little bit.
right.
Uh,
I
to
don't. I
you
don't
know,
think it would be a good decision to get rid of him and uh, Eamon,
yeah.
because I imagine that's where the conclusion has to be going. Right? They've been
You would
building that up too
you would think
obviously.
so, but I just wonder. So like Eamon feels to me pretty obvious that his pride is the thing that's going to get him killed.
Right.
He's so confident in everything that he's doing. And it almost makes you wonder if he's one of those characters that like he's not going to get killed in a fight. He's gonna he's gonna have done something
Get
that
poisoned or
causes
something.
him to, yeah, like someone's gonna backstab him essentially.
Oh well, Larry's definitely is.
Yeah, Larry's. I mean, like, dude, don't count out his brother either. Aegon.
Oh yeah.
Like Aegon's alive, and so who knows, man? Like he's playing well, and he's smart, he's confident, he's got the biggest dragon. But like that to me says like something's gonna happen to him. Who knows, man? Maybe Jace will get him. You know,
That's true.
there's a lot that could potentially happen with his character, but I still really like him. You know what I mean? Like as far as like he's making a lot of the right moves. I was going back through like you know closing down the city was probably the best thing for him to do. Like he's really trying to play this correctly to win the big fight, right? But then like where his problem is coming in is that like he has forgotten about the little folk, which is I think the name of this episode. The small folk, I think, is what it's called.
Yes.
And so
And the optics of, hey, it doesn't matter if Rhaenyra's the one that's blocking the port, and food from coming in. It's the optics of they look to you as a symbol of authority. You
yeah,
got to be providing food. You got to figure it out.
yeah. But he made the right call, finally cutting down the rat catchers.
Oh
Um,
yeah, thankfully.
I wish there had been a bit more of a conversation about Meleese and why that was a bad idea. I guess it's enough that we saw it and that this discussion was had about like that potentially being a bad omen. Um, but I kind of wish there had been some more there. But like you're seeing some of the decisions that are being made, that it seems like it should be the right call, but what some of this stuff's ultimately doing is turning the small folk against them. And
Against them.
we can talk about that scene if you want to. I thought it's one of I think the best scenes in the episode. They get the
Do it.
food, and Alicent goes to pray with her daughter. Oops. Oh, oops. Too much going on there. And they get attacked by the small folk. And
Good scene.
it's for me like this is one of those scenes that's pretty classic Game of Thrones, where like you're like, oh, dude, they might
They
not
may
make it
not
out
get
of
it out
this.
of here.
Yeah, like I really was like, one of them might be like, we might like, I honestly even thought that maybe this was it for Alicent. That she was, it's just one of those crazy things that happens in the show where she gets sucked into a crowd and that's it, and she's done, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just did that. Obviously, that wasn't the case for either of them, but it's still a great scene. This guy gets like his arm chopped off. And she realizes like, oh hey, like you don't escalate this thing, but it's too late at that point. All it took was like for
Dude,
them to see blood, and that was the end of it. Oop.
dude, I know. And she kind of screwed her Kingsguard up by saying, sheath your sword. I'd be
Yeah,
like, oh, hell no.
yeah.
Use, get them all out.
They stayed back and got beat.
Just in that world, I totally get where, again, Alicent is coming from. But because of that poor decision, um, she got one of her Kingsguard killed. So now it's like, oh, now we got to replace one of them too, which is hard to do. Now it's funny though. Granted, Rhaenyra's Kingsguard, obviously probably way better and more important, but now they're both in that situation of we got to replace a Kingsguard, which
Uh-huh.
doesn't seem like it's something that's easy to do.
No, it's probably
Um,
going to get harder for each of them as well. Um, you know,
yeah,
everything
and
there are both sides are getting taxed pretty hard as far as like their losses.
which is what the dance of the dragon, I guess, is supposed to be about.
Yeah, yeah. You get dragons involved, and things really, really do get bad. Speaking of
Now,
which,
ooh, dude,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
am enjoying Sir Kristen Cole. He is shot up just like Aemon has this
That's funny.
this season, dude.
Was
Like
he
his
in this episode?
interaction of
He's over
of
here
her
somewhere.
and what's her brother's name? Allison's brother's name?
Um,
Garrett?
no, Gwaine.
Gwaine, that's it. So with him and Gwaine just being like, yeah, we're marching to our deaths.
Dude, and Gwaine, I really, oh man, it's selfish. I really want to see more of Gwaine. The guy, like, he's doing a great job. He's very pragmatic in everything that he does. Like the way he's talking to her, and the way he's just like, he kind of knows he has no choice in all of this,
Yep.
and he just has to do his duty, and like he's so reluctant. I'm curious to see what happens in the rest of the season.
Yeah. I really want him and Sir Kristen Cole this season to survive just so we get more of their interaction.
I
Um,
I wonder. I do wonder because there's a lot of like Kristen is in the back of a lot of these scenes. Like there's obviously stuff going on with him and Allison. Like we've talked about that quite a bit. But there's some tension between the two of them that I think you can see in a couple shots. And then
I,
like
what I like about Cole though too is he's at the table. He's just giving advice. We saw him like last week go
yes,
against Allison, and this week go with her.
and
And so he's just trying to give what he thinks is best.
he is they he's not, we've talked about it before, when it comes to sort of the political stuff, he really doesn't know what he's doing, but
Yeah.
he does know combat. He's one of the few characters in the show, especially after Rook's Rest, who does truly understand what's going on in this war, and it does sort of seem like Aemon's kind of like, in this, again, like I said, his pride will probably be the thing that is his downfall.
Yep.
It sort of seems like he pushed Cole away, like he got what he needed out of Cole, and now Cole is just another pawn for him to use. And so he learned it from Alicent, right? Like that, all of the stuff, like you can connect the pieces from like it's almost like, if you want to call it like a generational curse, you can, but like Otto treated Alicent that way. Alicent treated her children that way, and now her children treat all the people around them that way.
Yep.
Um, Very interesting.
It's almost like the Red Keep isn't the best place to raise children.
Yeah, it's like Harrenhal's not the only place that's actually cursed.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
exactly. And probably why her son Darren um, grew up to be so, from what that Gwaine said, to be nice and
Hmm.
kind and stout and a man of integrity and stuff like that.
And that, yeah, there are. I think for me, like the good still outweighs the bad in this episode. I think if we're talking bad, it's really just the stuff going on with Rhaenyra and What's her name?
Saria.
Massaria. Thank you.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the whole dragon situation at the end was,
Not into it.
nah, dude, I thought it was lame.
Hmm.
I thought it was like the dragon choosing the rider. Like, I get it. That's old Laenor's dragon.
Mm-hmm.
So I get he's like, no, I'm not gonna go with a white guy. I'm gonna go with who I know, right?
Fair enough. I want to know. I just need an explanation at this point.
Yeah, like if I get an explanation and it recontextualizes that scene, I'm fine with it.
Because
But it just seems like something we've never seen before. I would have rather like Rhaenyra,
here we go.
finds out about Lord Coriolis's children. But here's the thing that I'm confused on: Lord Coriolis can't ride a dragon because he doesn't have Targaryen blood.
Right.
But so how can Adam or Alan, like?
Well,
It's not like
this
they're
is
his
this.
kids with Rhaenyra or Rhaenys.
Well, the question. He is. I guess they have Valyrian blood, but I don't know. Yeah, I
So
don't.
does Lord Coriolis.
Right. I don't know if like potentially what it is that like that's enough. Maybe even just for like sea smoke, right? And I don't know. Again, I don't know what the answer is. With all of that, or like what if because he I don't remember this guy's name.
Adam.
That's Adam. What's his brother's name?
Yeah. Alan.
Alan. Okay, that's why it's man. Sometimes it's like, hey, can you not do both A's for the brothers, please?
The one brother's name is Adam, and the other brother's name is Adam with two D's.
So I don't know if like I guess they have, if Corlius is their father, like I don't know if they have the same mother. This yeah,
And that's where I would wonder like who the mother is, and
right.
like in any case, it's not necessarily. I don't like. I'm cool with him being one of the dragon seeds. I just wish the setup would have been different.
Agreed.
It's
Yeah, and
the
well, and
execution.
they I call it what you. I mean, they foreshadow it in like episode 2. I
Oh
think.
yeah, yeah.
You're like, oh, okay. I bet that's probably what's gonna happen. Yeah, but you're right.
You
I
know who's
would
gonna
like
get a dragon? So obviously he does. The guy
the
at the bar,
the blacksmith,
definitely will,
because he's clearly got Targaryen
yeah.
like blood. So we'll see. That's probably going to be more of like a next season thing. They're still. I think he like if I was to guess what's going to happen, his daughter and his wife are probably going to get killed at some point this season, and he's probably going to just like make his way to Dragonstone and be like,
You know what I think's gonna happen? I think his daughter and his wife is gonna get killed by either the blacks or the greens dragon, right? Somehow.
well, like
And then
Vagar
he's going
takes,
to
yeah.
and he's gonna go side with either the blacks or the greens,
Oh,
the
fair enough.
opposite one, and get on the dragon and help them. Maybe even potentially even like end up betraying them or something like that and trying to go out on his own, and make his own claim to the
Oh.
throne, right? I could see that happening.
So Chris Smalls is saying that Corlius does have some Targaryen in his blood
I see. I thought he did.
because he's old Valeria, so it does make sense that like
But I thought all the Valyrians didn't. Just because they were Valyrians didn't mean they had dragon blood in them.
yeah. I think it's I don't know. Maybe it's something that they haven't quite.
Fleshed out.
Yeah, maybe they didn't flesh it out quite as much as they needed to. And that's why I'm saying like maybe in the next episode we'll get a little bit of the like, well, actually, like it is very much possible because of how close old Valeria and like that line is to the Targaryens and like the past before the Doom, like the whole deal.
Right.
There's definitely that's kind of where I was at least like leaning. It was like, okay, like maybe there is like something going on there. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, like, hey, I mean, it is what it is, and like, it adds like an interesting take to all of that. And Sea Smoke, man, I was really, that scene early on. There's good old our favorite from last season, good old Viserys.
Yeah.
Let's see,
Good
what was
scene.
that? It was pretty early on. Sea Smoke denying the King's Guard. Poor guy, man. He had it pretty tough. He lost his dad. Where is that
It
scene,
got
dude? Oh, here
burned to
it
death,
is.
dude. That
Um,
that's
I
that's a
like,
gnarly way to
yeah,
go out.
I like the scene a lot. I think Game of Thrones does a really good job with the tension, you know. And you're kind of like Willy Wolny, and I'm like, oh, I don't think it's gonna happen. And then for a minute, you're like, okay. But as soon as he went, I did it. I was like, oh no,
Oh yeah,
you're
he's
done. You're
gone.
toast,
As
literally.
soon as I saw Sea Smoke lay his or her hair down, whatever, head down, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't gonna go well. And then when he said, "Oh, I got it," I'm like, this definitely
Yep.
isn't going
Yeah, he's
well.
done. He's done. Oh man.
And when he got burned, I was like, cool.
Poor dude, I felt so bad for him. He was always just trying to do his best, and like just everything went south for him. Oh man. Let's
Oh, dude.
see. Julu said it was said that Valerian families could ride dragons, but the Targaryens essentially cornered dragon riding, making others think they are the only ones who could do it.
Ah,
Makes sense.
yeah, that does make sense. Okay.
Um, I imagine there's gonna
Again, I still wish the setup for
sure.
that whole scene
Yeah, they
is
could have
better.
played around with that a little bit. They talked about the families. And maybe what it is that like she's looking through Targaryen histories to find like potential matches or whatever, and so maybe she never even considered the like
Or
Valerian thing
she
because
discusses it with the hand, Lord Coriolis, and he's like, "Well, you know what may work actually.
yeah maybe
I have two kids. I know two people who are of Valyrian blood and
yeah
have, you know what I mean? Like
I
that's
still
one way that could have happened.
I'm him and Alan that whole subplot this season I've still really been enjoying too. Alan, not wanting to, he doesn't really want to. He has like no interest in taking over. Which, what's interesting, right, is that one of the big themes of this episode is the discussion of the people who aren't interested in taking power being the most worthy.
Yep.
So, and I like
I
even
don't
the.
want the
Sorry, go ahead.
power of the presidency.
Um, even him like continuing to like shave his head to hide like that little like feature that is very
Yeah.
distinct. I really like that stuff, man. I mean, it's all very small. It's these little
The
things that are going
details,
on.
man.
Yeah, all the small stories going on around like the big stuff. It's really really good. So it's like even when there's stuff that just isn't quite working for me, I'm really happy with the direction that a lot of it is going in.
Yeah. The show
Um,
was really good. This was a good episode. You
who
know.
who else do we need to talk about this season? Oh, we should. I love the Maester is so funny, dude. Like Allison is
Yes.
constantly trying to like
Yes.
get him to take a side, and he's just like he doesn't. I think in this time, what is it? I can't remember exactly what she asks him. Um, but he doesn't even say anything and just like walks away.
Yeah.
He's like, stop. Like I'm not even. Don't do this.
I'm not
Oh
gonna
man.
dignify this.
Yeah, smart guy. Smart guy.
Yeah, he's one as far as a tertiary character is concerned, he's one of my favorite this season. And that Aemon and Aegon scene was also really good. And
Mm-hmm.
the Larrys and Aegon scene was even better because Larrys was like, okay, I can't attain power in what I want with your brother, so I'm gonna have to revert back to
Yep.
my golden boy, my
Yep.
ticket.
Which is why I was saying before too. I think that Eamon has the potential to just overplay his hand in this situation. Um, and I don't know, man. I mean, there's the embrace. You blink and you
Yeah,
miss it.
so dumb.
But just
Massario was like, "Oh yeah, you're a great queen. I can end this war for you.
oh,
I
bro,
know how to. Like, why don't you go do that then?"
it's literally the meme now. Kiss. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just and it's like we say with a lot of the other like stuff that doesn't quite work. The whole thing with Kristen Cole in the first season, killing that one night at the wedding,
Oh
and
yeah,
like
Laenor's.
Laenor's like boyfriend or
Yeah.
his lover or whatever. the stuff's just not quite earned. They didn't do enough and show us enough of like those potential things to go like, oh, maybe Kristen Cole isn't quite as stable as we thought he was, you know? And I know some of it is sort of like they're like these flashes, right? Because that season is so intent on like showing you different pieces of history over a long period of time, where this is like it is slowing everything down that's happening over the course of a few weeks or so, which is what the rest of the series is really going to be. But yeah, man, I don't know what they're doing with this, and I'm just not. I'm kind of like I don't even know if it's really going to go much of anywhere.
I
Like
think they're
what?
just setting Mysaria up as to be Rhaenyra's master whispers and now like love affair.
Yeah.
Because the Targaryens do that stuff, and it's kind of
Yep.
interesting. I figured Daemon would have been the first one to cheat out of both of them.
Yeah,
I
fair
would have thought it
enough.
would have been Daemon, but
Oh,
now
there's still time. There's still time. I thought he
yeah.
and Alice Rivers were headed in that direction.
Now to be fair, maybe in one of his illusions.
Oh,
Uh,
well, with his mother
yeah, well,
in the
maybe
previous
that was
episode.
maybe that was actually Alice. Um,
Yeah, fair enough.
But now in his defense, he's probably I don't really know how much what's the word I'm looking for, agency he has in a vision like that. But yeah, definitely interesting. As far as with him at Harrenhal, for me, it's one of those things that okay, we don't need another scene in this next episode. It's time to move on from it.
Well,
It's been a little bit slow for me.
It seems like it's going to get wrapped up in the next episode.
Yeah,
Like because there
like I
were
don't
some
need another vision.
there were it seems that Elmo, is it Elmo Tully?
One of them, one of the
Because it's
Sesame Street
Grover.
characters.
Grover was the previous one. Was it Elmo?
Yeah,
For
it's like
for some reason that's
Elmo
what I've
and
got.
the other one.
And Grover.
Yeah, something like that.
I think that's right. But
Now, don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed the Harrenhal scenes with Damon. I really have enjoyed them. I think they've helped at contextualize his character more, and the fact that everything wrapped up with the series, I think, closes that recontextualization of Damon.
agreed. He's clearly come around to something. The question is, what is it? And that's why I said like they'll wrap it up in this next episode. As far as like his time at Harrenhal, what happens with him and the Rivermen, and yeah. So we shall see what exactly is going to be going down.
Yes, we shall.
But yeah, I've been enjoying it. I think that they've done a really good job, kind of giving him just giving him something different to do. You know, you don't always get that, and it doesn't always like play out in a way that is like interesting. And they've spent a lot of time just like with his character personally this season, and I appreciate that a lot because there's a lot of shows that refuse to do that.
Completely agree.
Oh man, yeah. Still really happy, man. Let me pop over here to the previous
We
episode.
really
real
didn't
quick.
need any of those scenes with Mysaria and Rhaenyra kissing. It was just, to me, it was kind of like that
It's
problem scene. It's
so-
like, why is this necessary?
It's so goofy.
And why
dude.
don't you should just go to alluding things like,
Yeah, well again, that's the thing is like you needed to build that up.
ooh, yeah,
It's
crispy.
that's why it comes off as so weird for the two of them because you're just like, wait, what? Why? Huh? Like when did they ever show us like any sort of intent between the two of them? That there was even like a hint of that, because like that never crossed my mind until this episode, and it feels forced ultimately, that it's like, oh, we need to like, oh, there needs to be sort of this like drama, so this is the way that we're gonna do it. It's like, like no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it and the problem is that what ends up happening is it feels like more like just that Masari is like manipulating her than anything.
Right.
Like that, just straight up, rather than it being like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
maybe
it's
not.
so obvious.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Is it like it should be more of a, oh, well, like maybe not. Maybe there is real feelings there. They spend a lot of
Well, I
time
think-
together. They
I-
trust
let me-
each other now. But it just
Let me phrase it. I think writing wise, they're probably not going to have Mysaria betray her, But I mean, that's what she's built
Mm.
her life on, is betraying people.
Exactly. Well, that's
So
yeah. I think she's gonna try it at some point.
you think so? I
Yeah.
don't think they're gonna do it. I think they're trying too hard to portray this as, something it necessarily shouldn't be. Trying to
Gotcha.
portray Missaria and Rhaenyra as too much of the good guys
Maybe they're just
this
not
season.
doing a good job with their relationship in the show. Is what it ultimately comes down to. Is it's like something will happen eventually, and they'll be maybe you're right, and that's the thing is like and this is the problem with the way sometimes that they contextualize or attempt to contextualize characters in this is that they're like, oh really, like they're really like misunderstood and they're kind of the good guys, and then one and or both of them will start making horrific decisions, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
this fly. It's sort of like with Rhaenys, right? Like they kept trying to do that with her, but it's like, she's like, oh, the mothers, and it's like, you killed lots of mothers. Like you
Yes.
clearly don't care. Like it
And it would
would.
have been so easy
Mhm.
when they were doing Maylisa's head through um the street if some of the town folks were like, yeah, yeah, like, glad that happened. And then,
Uh-huh.
other towns were like, hey, no, this is bad omen.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah. There's
Throwaway
some
line.
small little things here and there that they just seem to have missed the ball on, and some of them, unfortunately, like thankfully, like we're kind of past that, you know. Um,
Right.
and I'm mostly fine ultimately, despite episode 9 from last season just being like that moment was like such an easy fix, dude. And like
Yeah.
it's pretty. There's a I can't remember. It might be in the behind the scenes thing for that, but the writer of the episode, and like I think even after the episode came out, literally had no clue what she did.
I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all about that comment. I don't think that's I don't think I think like I can certainly see where some people are coming from. Like I kind of think that like a little bit of the whole problem with Massaria and Rhaenyra's characterization and their plot together is a bit of what that comment was alluding to. But as far as everything else, that comment's trying to imply, I don't agree with.
yeah,
As
it's
far as with like Alan and Adam and
yeah. Sorry,
Lord
y'all. I'm just
Corliss
not.
and stuff.
I'm not dealing with it. Just
Yeah.
not even gonna. I'm not gonna start fights with idiots in the troll room. Um,
Don't blame you.
yeah, see, yeah, the producers are throwing away book canon. Oh yeah, I mean, well, they've kind of already said that it's a lot of the stuff in the book at this point is unreliable narration. That it's coming, from the perspective of people who are like telling the history, and may not have like all the details correct, which I think is cool. I think it's cool, and I'm fine with the fact that like this is the kind of like definitive version of that, even though like some of the details in it, like I don't think they've been quite as clever as they could have been in certain places. But
Agreed.
yeah, man. Yes, man. Overall, I'm still happy with it. I'm still happy what they're doing. And man, Arcane season 2 is not too far away.
Dude, I know.
Really looking forward to that. I guess okay, so I think what we should do with that too, because I've mentioned it before, it's like we should definitely find time to rewatch the first season and then just talk about season 1 again and put that out as an
Okay.
episode, since we didn't really get to do that the first time it came out. And maybe like a fresh perspective, like a few years later, could be really interesting. Like what's changed for us, how much of season 1 still really works, and like is there anything that like we're not as big of a fan of at this point, or just different stuff like that. I think it would be really cool to do that. And it's
Yeah,
only what,
man.
6 episodes? No, it's 9 episodes. Sorry, because
Yeah.
it's like they
So
put them out in threes.
not a huge commitment
Yep.
at all, and really, really, really good show. So
Yeah.
I'm game for that.
Cool, dude. Well, y'all, we will end it here. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We will be back next. Oh no, hold on. We won't be back next week. So we will be back in 2 weeks to talk about episode 7 and 8. I'm going on vacation next week, so
Yes.
there will be no episode. We're gonna try to get Technically Mexican back on. Maybe, I don't know, man. Maybe we should try to, send out a few more invites. Make a big deal of it being the end of season 2. Have a few extra people on, including Technically Mexican. See if we can get some interesting perspectives for it. So
I'd be game with that.
awesome. You got anything else you want to add before we close this one out?
I am all out.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to episode 179 of The Underground. We will see you in 2 weeks to close out season 2 of House of the Dragon. Thank you guys so much for continuing to show up, to be in the troll room. And until next time, y'all, take it easy.
See ya.